Hi.
Welcome, welcome to our Sapphic World Book Club and Q&A portion. We just spent the last half hour really unpacking the series and all the emotions that you've been able to evoke. And is that, are you ready to go?
Sounds good. Let's do it.
So I've already got a couple of questions. Next book about what and where from Maria.
Next book is called The Unfinished Line, and it's not related to the Senator's Wife series, so it'll be a standalone on its own. It again has an athlete in it, a triathlete, and it is the secondary protagonist is an actress who is basically has at the very first page she's landed like the role of a lifetime. And but the book is more, it's not a romance, it is a love story, but along the lines of the kind of the same way that the Senator's Wife had some heavier subjects in it. It too will have kind of stay in that vein of things, and it's exploring the kind of the expectations that people place on themselves, both not so much actually for the actress, but for the athlete. I'm really interested in the psychology that athletes go through at such a high professional level. And this is an Olympic athlete who is a perfectionist, and it's kind of exploring. She falls in love with this actress Cameron, and it explores through their relationship. It's exploring kind of like the perfectionism and the downsides of it, and all the pressures that they place on themselves. But it's a really beautiful love story at the same time.
And do we have an idea of when that one's going to be coming
Oh,
out?
it was supposed to be March, but I think today's April 20th. So I'm hoping for I, things get a little out of hand. The book is completely written. It's been written for 4 years. It's now heading off to my editor in probably about 2 weeks. I've been finalizing the last rewrite. It'll go to my editor. It'll sit with her for about a week, and then I'm really hoping for end of May, 1st of June.
Okay.
Okay. As
And
follow-up to that, I've got somebody that wants to know, since you're writing another sports athlete type story, if it's the sports or soccer that came first, or if it was the character and story that came first when you were
Um,
writing.
as well, I mean, I've always been into I'm a triathlete, or was a triathlete, I should say, until my knees gave up on that. So that all came first, and it's where my interests come from. My sister was a wonderful soccer player. I unfortunately played softball my entire life through my collegiate career. So soccer was I was just a fan. But so sports came first, and then I kind of write about the things I know, I guess I should say, and I just bring that to my books.
Okay.
I have one from Tony who's asking in that vein. We need to know if there is a fourth book in the series for the Senator's
You,
Wife series. And we have a
um,
couple of things. Amelia book, please. And I would love an Elle and Natalie book.
Amelia is a dead given. Yes, that's 100% going to happen. I think that Elle was such a fun character to write that I think she'll be on the docket as well to get her own story with Natalie. And then I said absolutely not for a fourth book for Catherine and Alex because building that relationship was as exhausting writing it, I think, probably as it is reading it. However, I do think I've had a lot of inquiries about it, and I think that ending where we are, I think we could move forward and have one fourth and final for certain final, and I should never say certain because it never works out like that. I think I could move forward and potentially get one more book out of it following after the wedding and moving through their NWSL joint venture. So I could see that happening. And I'll say yes, I'll do a fourth book.
Oh, that's amazing. And on in that vein, how did you come up with the story and all of the emotion and the trauma and can
Oh my
imagine
gosh.
writing it. And, yeah.
Oh, I actually started. I had the idea for the two characters. I wasn't sure what they would be and how the story would go. But on a flight to Alaska, in 2010. So that's how the book's been in my head that long. And then I was traveling to Alaska and lost 200 pages worth of the book on an old computer, which thankfully no longer, we didn't have the cloud at that time. And so I gave up on it for a long time, but it still sat there. And in 2018, I'm a big, obviously, I'm a big soccer football fan. And in 2018, we looked like we were really heading toward another solid World Cup for our USWNT. And I was like, okay, you know what? I finally know what I want to do with these characters. And honestly, I took so much of, I write about what I know again. So I took, my wife had just actually lost her very successful company to her brother who had, basically he figured out a way to swindle it out from underneath her. So we were going through the trauma of losing our company and literally starting completely from scratch again. So that was where Catherine started. I mean, obviously it's all fictional for Catherine in different scenarios and situations, but that was where like I've got a lot of, my wife is a very successful businesswoman. So I took much of her and her experience and her trauma. She was also, not, I shouldn't say trauma, but she was, when we met and long before we were together for almost 25 years, she was in a really a relationship similar to Catherine's with her ex-husband who people always think that the character is based off of Trump and it's actually based off of my wife's ex. So it was a situation like that. So anyway, so I just took all of that and I was an athlete and I took and I was raised by very right-wing conservative parents and I went to Christian school and nothing against that, but just in a very like a closeted community, and even where I live now is a very conservative community. So I took a lot of that from Alex, comes from my upbringing. And I mean, even though I'm certain that I probably would have really enjoyed high school a lot more if I'd realized I was gay at the time, but it took me till I was like 21 years old to even figure that out because of the way I was raised. So so a lot of Alex comes from that.
Oh, that's really interesting. I've got a
Yeah.
question here about how difficult was it to make Caleb unlikable? And have you gotten any feedback about that character?
Caleb, when I started writing him, I didn't really necessarily have plans to make him that unlikable. And then just as we went along, like I had high school and college boyfriends that just drove me nuts. And that I think, and it's so again, just from like personal experience of somebody who's always like owning your own success. You know, it's your success and somebody else is taking the credit from it or for it. And it gets old and tiring. So I started to like kind of push that into Caleb. And it was just, I think that like so many people are in relationships like that and that we don't realize. We're like, oh, wow, you know, be it any type of relationship and and that narcissism that comes out and you don't even see it because this is a person that you love. And it's a person who, you know, like in her case was her friend that she trusted and that was there for her. And so I just started, his character just evolved to what it was. And I also needed it to be a push toward why Alex would finally say, you know what, enough is enough. And I want to figure out who I am. So, so it wasn't, I just wrote him off of men I know. Unfortunately, I wish I could say it was harder to write, but he's just based off of everyday interactions with a lot of the guys I know.
Yeah.
We were talking a bit about her agreement to sign off with her dad and letting that go and the different aspects of that. And just wondering if you can talk a little bit about how you came to that decision in your writing and what was going on for you with that.
Oh, as far as I didn't know. I didn't know forever what I wanted Catherine to do or what Catherine would stay true to her character for. And I thought, okay, she could expose him. She could do all these things. She could do, you know, there were any number of, she could get even. And I really felt like staying true to her was, you know what, she didn't want this company anymore anyhow. The company has dragged her down. She's never felt like she belonged to the Brooks family. No matter, even if she got the company all for herself, it would still be his. It was built by him. It's his baby and it's not her baby. So she needed something entirely of her own. And I didn't see her being, even though Catherine, Alex is the one who had the harder time being outed as gay, and Catherine didn't didn't necessarily, she's somebody already in her own and established as who, I think she's pretty confident in who she is. I don't think that it affected her as much, but I felt like she wouldn't do that to somebody else, that she wouldn't put, even though she doesn't love her father, he has never loved her. I didn't feel like she would drag somebody down just because of who she is as a person. So that's how I came to that decision. I had all kinds of wonderful plans for getting even, and it just never felt true to her.
Yeah, that was a really lots of emotions evoked during that scene, and seeing the different ways it could go. And we were wondering if taking care of her mom was a part of it as well.
Absolutely. I felt like,
Yeah.
because he even, I think, mentions in the book, like it's not just, the other thing I considered as well was not just her mother, but also any man that he's had a relationship with now gets dragged into this as well. And so it was never, as Catherine focuses in the book, it's not just about him. There's other lives that would be destroyed in this. And she's not a destroyer. She's too forgiving, obviously, but she also, I I feel like also taking away the longevity of the company and the corporation going to anybody else. His whole thing about that at least he had a daughter that he felt like would carry on with the corporation, and it actually is sweet retribution to her to know that, you know what, your company is going to die with you, and that was probably one of the worst things she felt like she could do to him without dragging him to a different level that took other people down.
Yeah. I've got a question here. It says, who are the inspiration for the main characters, including Amelia? As the only strong supporting character without a happily ever after, will we see more? You already answered that piece of this one. But the series covers such a broad range of in-world topics, from soccer to shipping, politics, domestic abuse, London pub culture, sailing, etc. What was the hardest or toughest topic to research, and what was your research project like? So, character inspiration and research.
Okay, character inspiration is I don't know if you can see, I have like Carol is such a huge, I loved I Kate Blanchett, and that is perfection. And I thought, okay, she's basically, to me she's like perfection personified. So Kate was definitely the inspiration for Catherine in that respect of just that poise and that class and that kind of indomitable persona of who she is. So I definitely used Kate Blanchett for that. And then Ali Krieger, I've been a fan of Ali Krieger for as long as I can remember. I really felt, again, if you want to talk about somebody who's classy and somebody who, for those who don't know, Ali Krieger is she played for the NWSL for many, many years and was a staple on the United States women's national team. She was a defender. And she has been injured so many times and she got kicked off the national team and just got back up so many times, classier and better than ever. And is just a fighter without being, she's not a loudmouth, she's not outspoken. I mean, she's outspoken on social justice issues, but she's not not, I don't want to say too big of a personality because I don't think there's any such thing, but she's just a more demure person. And she was kind of perfect for Alex in that a little more soft-spoken, a little more uncertain kind of personality. So I used Allie for her. Amelia was kind of a plethora of characters. She's not any one particular character, but I used a bit of Megan Rapinoe because Pino's just such a hero to me. She has a swagger that I think nobody else can top. Abby Wambach in the grittiness. Sam Kerr, the Australian striker, in her her athleticism is unreal. So I used, and kind of her also, again, you want to talk about a swagger. There's so much confidence in Sam. And then one of my favorite players of all time is Jess Fishlock, and I used a bit of Fishlock's just tenacity and just, again, that grit on the pitch. And I turned all of that into Amelia, who is honestly one of my favorite characters that I've written. I thoroughly enjoyed Amelia. So, and Natalie, there are a couple of French actresses I used, but I drew her out of my friend base of the friends I grew up with that were so supportive and just always there for me. And I wanted Catherine. Catherine needed to have somebody like that for her to help get her through. So Natalie's not necessarily any based off of any realistic person, but or a real person. She's just kind of a mess of a bunch of people. And then the researching part. Oh my gosh, I think the whole book was horrible to research, to be honest. From the business, I mean, we used to run a pretty big business, and so I'm very familiar with corporations and all the levels of it and everything, and the dissolution and the splits and all that. But still trying to figure that out with when you combine it in another country. So we're in the US, and I wanted everything trying to match what would happen in the UK, and not just the UK. Unfortunately, even the UK is split with, England has different laws than Wales and Scotland do, and so it was very difficult to make sure that, and I'm sure I messed up in places, but to make sure that it all went across the board and to come up with the language, like the barrister, as far as working in a barrister's chambers is so much different than working in one of our attorney's offices, and so trying to get all that correct was just it was kind of a beast. And then I love soccer. I didn't play. I played as a little tiny kid, so making sure, even though I'm a huge fan, I'll put my knowledge as far as a fan goes up against anybody. But how there's just you don't have the same thing when you haven't played. You don't have that same lingo. It's like when I read a horse book and I'm like, oh, this person's never ridden, because you just have, even though it could all be correct, but you just have your own language. And so I pulled so many soccer playing and football playing friends to make sure I was having, trying to get all the language correct as far as being at that level. So that was all kind of difficult to research.
That sounds like a lot. That's a big commitment. So good on you for that. I've got one more that I feel like that kind of rolls into whether or not you are a plotter or a pantser, is in your writing style.
I had actually just heard of the word Pancer like 3 months ago. I'd never even heard, I didn't even know that there were terms for it, to be honest, which is embarrassing. I guess I'm a pantser because one of the things, like, had no idea that Alex and Amelia were going to hook up on the beach. Like, I was writing and minding my own business, and off they went. So that was like a frustrating turn of events for the book, but alas, there they are. So I always used to laugh when people, like, I'd watch Stephen King interviews and he's like, oh, these characters do what they're going to do, and I'm like, okay, so you're the one writing the character, they do what you're telling them to do. And oddly, it just doesn't work like that. Like, you have plans and they just go amiss. So now I'll jot a bit about what I think I want to have happen, and it just never turns out even remotely like that. But I do take notes. I storyboard. You guys can't see it from here, but I have an immense storyboard where I put up tons and tons of photos on my walls, and just for inspiration. But nope, I sit down and write that morning thinking I basically have no idea what I'm going to do, and it then results in about 500 rewrites, which is the unfortunate part of that.
I have a question from Laura. It seems you live surrounded by animals, and I'm wondering if your future books there will be also some interesting pet characters. And I have one, and on that there's also, will there be a book about equestrian sports
Oh gosh,
from the show?
so yes, we are surrounded by animals, and we've been really lucky that no animals have actually even joined us this morning. So we've got everything. I rode cutting horses and hunter jumpers for many, many years, and that was my career. Now I have draft horses, and so we have 18 horses here at the ranch that are that
Wow.
we breed. They're gypsies and drafts, as in like the Budweiser Clydesdales. Then we have chickens that are just for fun, and we give out ranch eggs to basically anybody we can find that'll take them, because we have so many. And we have our dogs. I have my corgi, who's probably dying to join us up here. And we have Maine Coon cats and a couple of donkeys, and parrots, which I'm afraid you'll probably hear at some point because they're in the room behind me. But so yes, I have lots of animals. As far as them making them into books, I do have a couple dogs I think that show up in later books for certain. And as far, like, I would like to, not a ranch book so much. I'd definitely love to write an equestrian book. In this next book I'm writing, the unfinished, or that's written, the unfinished line, one of the side characters is actually a eventer, which is like the 3-day eventing. They do cross country, dressage, and show jumping. So that will take place in that, and her horse is involved in that. But as far, I do want to write an actual equestrian novel. E.J. Noyes' Pas de Deux is one of my all-time favorites. Very clearly, she's an accomplished equestrian, and was just one of my all-time favorite equestrian related books. So add that it's Sapphic, and it just is perfection to me. So I'd love to write something probably more from an eventing standpoint. And so at some point that'll get there.
Cool. Cool.
I got a question from Q. Could you see the story becoming a screenplay? And then another one that says, what would your dream cast for the Senator's Wife movie or series be? I think you snuck a couple of those in there when you're talking about inspiration, maybe, but I'm curious if that changes.
As far as, oh, I'm sorry, what was the first question before the dream
Can you
cast?
see it becoming a
Oh,
screenplay?
could I see it?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's actually one of the things I get asked about the most, and we're working really hard. It's actually you have to have an agent in order to even pitch it to any of the studios. So it's not as simple as it's quite a project. My wife is working on that. She's the much better promoter. I'm just like, oh, there's people out there. So she's working on. We're trying to find an agent. I self-published, so I don't have any connections in that realm. But I would love to see it probably become a series because it is so long. I think a movie would be stretching it. But I saw that Cleat Cute was just picked up, and that was amazing. That's awesome that Pino and Sue Bird have that production company now. So we will definitely be pursuing options along that line. And as far as a dream cast, I like Kate Blanchett. Like I said, obviously that would be amazing. I also think that like somebody like Emily Blunt or Michelle Williams would play the role really well because Catherine's only 42. She's not, I know a lot of times I think it's that she seems older in the books, but she starts the books at 42. So I think that's probably more like in the age range. Um, I, I mean, obviously, however, Kate Blanchett would be outstanding, and she could be like 300 and still pull off the role. It doesn't matter. As far as Alex goes, I always have people suggesting names to me, and I need people to continue suggesting names because I have no idea. There's a lot of great actresses out there, and I just honestly have never settled on anybody who I think would be perfect, even though not so. So for anybody who has suggestions, send them my way because I love to think about those things and just kind of storyboard and put that out there. And I don't know. I mean, oh gosh, like you have to be so athletic to do the role. I think like Daisy Ridley is somebody I feel that's like a very athletic actress who could have pulled off Alex pretty well. And as far as Amelia, oh gosh, again, I would need suggestions. I have no idea.
Jamie, you said you had another question.
Okay. Yeah, I was thinking when you said as for when you're thinking of characters, my brain started playing actresses through
Hey,
my brain going, oh, who would fit for that? I do have a question about Maria would like to know, is writing a hobby now or a full-time job at this point?
writing, yeah, it's now a full-time job at this point. I've kind of let my horses, I'm not showing this year, which is kind of a relief, not being on the road, not, it's just a lot. So we're able to travel a little bit more. And actually this series has done better than sadly to say, my horse career entirely. It's actually been able to move into a full-time career for me, which has been a huge blessing because I've always wanted to be a rider, but I was a rider instead. So I rode horses for a living, and I've trained them for all these years. So it just until it took me a lot to actually. I've written tons of books. I actually have a lot written. It just took me a long time to ever get them anywhere ready to actually be published.
What made
Awesome.
you,
Congratulations.
yeah,
Thank you.
yeah,
It's a huge dream.
Yeah.
that's exciting for you. What made you start want to writing? And have you always written stories?
I wrote as a child. I remember actually one summer I was like 13 years old to stay with my older sisters who had, with my stepmom. And we didn't know each other that well because they lived in Jersey and I lived in California. And they literally, I think, hated me because all I did is sit up in my stepmom's loft and write. And they just thought something is wrong with me. Like she doesn't want to go out. She doesn't want to do anything. I went out. We actually went and played soccer. Other than playing soccer and lacrosse, the only thing, I sat up there with a laptop and wrote and wrote and wrote. And they were like, "This is the most boring, stupid kid that's ever existed." And I think they just hated me. So I've always written. I wrote every contest that was as a kid. My mom was a newspaper reporter. So she wrote a couple children's novels. So I was raised into writing, and I just never had actually gone forward and pursued it until Donna was like, you know what, enough. We're going to either publish this or no. Basically, there wasn't an option. She said, "You're going to publish this." So
How was it for you with getting through the audiobook? Was Abby Creighton like first choice?
the
What did you think? How was it when that happened?
Abby, I was so incredibly nervous I didn't even know how to get a hold of her. Like I was so new to all this that I just I had listened to several books with her as the narrator, and I was like, this woman is amazing. Like not just her voice is gorgeous, but more than that, it's her performance is perfection. She puts on an entire one woman show. I listen to other audiobooks that have 4 or 5 narrators, and personally, I think Abby does better almost. Half the time you forget that there's just one woman performing this. And so I was just absolutely enthralled. And I think I found like her yoga email at her studio and emailed her. And she is the most gracious person. She's an absolute delight. She's a lovely human being and very patient. I was so nervous asking her, and I think I just like walked around for 24 hours, like absolutely like tearing my nails off, waiting to get a response from her. And so when she said yes, I was absolutely thrilled. And she was perfection for it. The fact that she took on a book with so many accents and so much drama, it's exhausting. And I could never have asked for anybody better. She's an absolute delight.
Yeah, her voicing of Carlton.
Oh,
Oh my God.
amazing.
I was like,
Amazing.
no, I don't want to hear it. Brought it
Oh,
way too real.
her
Oh, the
divorce
chills.
scene. And it just, yeah, I mean, here, I wrote it and I'm like, oh my God, I have anxiety listening to this. This is ridiculous, you know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I've got a couple more questions. I want to be mindful of the time. Are you
Sure.
good for a couple more questions?
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Okay.
Perfectly.
I believe if I read right on social media, you're going to be at GCLS this summer. Is that
I
true?
am, yes, and I'm
Great.
really excited about it because I've made a lot of friends with other authors and a lot of readers, and which has been amazing because to be honest, like I said, I was raised in this like very conservative community, and we had like no gay friends, like none. And the horse world, it's pretty conservative, and especially in the part that we were in at the time. So I always tease my wife. I'm like, and I have wonderful, wonderful friends that I've grown up with my whole life who are phenomenal, and they know that I have, that they hold their perfect place in my heart. But finding your own tribe is amazing, and especially here, I'm 39 years old and didn't have like this community around me, and so finding this community has been the biggest blessing more than anything from these books they've brought me a lot, but the community they've brought me and the friends they've brought me have actually been the best thing out of it. And friends all over the world now. And so yes, GCLS is definitely a given. I'm looking really forward to meeting everyone.
That's awesome. I did get a question about how do you like or not like to interact with your fans? Like, do you have preferences on if people reach out or?
You know what? I get a lot of emails and a lot of messages, and if I haven't responded to somebody, it's because it's just absolutely slipped by accident. I respond to every single person, and I try to respond obviously personally and on a personal level, and I love it. It's being told that your art has helped somebody or has inspired somebody. Or I had a message the other day from a woman who said that she's been in a lot of pain and how the books got her through like a really rough period in her life. And I don't know if there's anything better than that, than knowing that you were able to help somebody through something that you love and something that has your own heart and soul in it. So I love to have people reach out, and I'm always happy to chat.
Absolutely. And then this one's less of a question and more of a comment, and maybe if you have any thoughts about it. It says the internal conflict of weighing the perfect life to the life where you can be the truest version of yourself is really intense. So they really liked that kind of internal conflict. And if you have any thoughts about that particular conflict.
I think it's true for both, like Catherine and Alex, like there's that I think that's what made those characters a bit more real to me, is that they are, it's not, they are having to weigh that internal battle and go through it and decide what was, is this gold standard worth more than being like truly authentic to who you are. And I think both fortunately found out that the authenticity is so important in today's world and who we are. So I definitely agree.
Absolutely. Jamie, that was my last question. You got any more?
No, we already covered what's next, and I think that's all I've got too.
All right.
Great.
You want to close this out?
Thank you so, so much for being here with
Thank
us. We really
you.
appreciate your time and this amazing series, and looking forward to what's next.
I appreciate it. I look forward to getting the next one out for sure. And
Awesome.
I'm honored you
All
guys
right.
had me, so thank you.